This is the silent killer of online fitness coaching businesses. Now, if you don't know me, I'm Sebastian. And over the last 2 years, I've helped coaches in the Italian market generate multiple 6 and 7 figures a year. And these are some of the results that I was able to help them achieve. We have right here Davide. He was able to get to 30k euros a month. Leonardo right here, he was able to generate 30k in his first 2 weeks of the month. Gianluca right here, he was our first client and he generated 1 million in revenue in 2 years of working with us. And Giulio, he generated 8k euros in the first month of working with us. Now, to generate these kind of results, coaches usually believe that they need to have a system, a plan, or a strategy. And those things help, but they only compound maybe to 10 to 20% of the result. What actually gets the work done, it's knowing who you are, aka having the right mindset. Now, before you click off this video, I'm not going to talk about cold plunging, meditating, mindfulness, or whatever else it is, because that's not how my clients got to the results. I'm talking about the real version of mindset, the one that determines whether you apply a strategy, if it's going to work or not. And the thing that gets me so mad about the current industry, it's how they water down the concept of mindset to the point where it's the most overlooked thing ever, when in reality mindset is everything, because you could have the best strategy, the best system, whatever you want to have. But if you don't have the right fundamentals, aka your mindset, you could build everything on top of it and it's going to fall. So this is the first thing that you need to worry about. And it's very important, but I don't want to tell you about this through the lenses of a university lecture because that's going to be boring. Instead, I want to give you 3 real examples of 3 coaches that I work with that had these problems and how they solved them. So that hopefully at some point in this video, you might see yourself in them and you're going to recognize a pattern that you have and understand why you are not where you want to be. Now, the way that I look at mindset, it's through a pyramid, and you can see that it has 3 layers. So why did I divide it in 3 layers? At the bottom, we have the problems that you can spot once you know what to look for, and they can be easily solved. But the higher we move up, the harder it is to spot them and the harder it is to actually solve them. And the very tip right here, it's something that is so dangerous because you cannot see it. Therefore, you cannot fix it. And you might think that everything is okay when in reality it's not. Now, the first layer of the pyramid is what I call the inaction layer. And to talk about this, I want to mention Bob. We are going to call him Bob for the sake of the video. He was somewhat successful because he had a gym and he had clients. But the reason to why he came to work with me was because for the last 2 years, he never had time for himself. Because he was working from 7 a.m. every single morning up until midnight, 6 days a week. So for 2 years of his life, he wasn't able to spend time with his family, his wife, and his kids. And this was starting to become a really big burden for him. When he told me about his situation, I thought that it would have been a simple case. All he needed to do was to do some short-term sacrifices where he would have had to work a little bit for a small period of time to have more free time in the future. And this wasn't a hard thing to do by any means. And this is where it gets infuriating, because every single week we had calls where I would guide him on what to do to free up his time. And I was giving him a little bit of tasks to do that. But every single week there were problems that didn't allow him to do the things that I told him to do. So one week his clients were all over him, so he had no time. The second week he was handling some works in the gym. And the third week he was preparing for his bodybuilding competition, so he didn't have time again. It's so fucking frustrating because he couldn't see that the reason to why he didn't have time was because he wasn't applying the fixes that I was telling him to do. He was waiting for the right moment to act, but he didn't realize that all the chaos that was going on was caused by his own inaction. His inaction was justifying the problem that caused the inaction itself. And this is where the paradox starts. Now, be honest with yourself here, because you probably had a client like this. They would tell you that they will start on Friday, maybe on Monday, maybe after the holidays, or that they weren't able to work out this week because they were busy. But you know deep down that that's bullshit. And so what do you tell them? You call them out. You tell them that there's never going to be a great moment to start because things are not going to magically fix themselves. You need to get out there and do the first step because that perfect moment, it's never ever going to come. And there's a good chance that you probably told these things to your clients many times. And so let me ask you this. Why are you different? If you're sitting on something because you're waiting for the perfect moment to act, you are behaving exactly like the client that you hate. You would call them out for it, right? And this is exactly what I did for Bob. And eventually he fixed things, but it costed him 2 years of his life that he couldn't spend with his wife and kids that he's never going to get back. Now we get to the second layer. And this is what I call the convenience layer. Now we talk about Rob. And Rob was nothing like Bob because he actually took the first step. And he was quite a knowledgeable guy because he spent a lot of time watching courses and videos on YouTube, and he had more knowledge than a lot of coaches that I know. But when he came to me, he didn't get any kind of result. At first glance, you might say, oh, maybe the information that he had wasn't right. And that's what I thought too. But after talking with him a little bit, I understood what was the core problem. Every time that Rob bought a course, he would only apply 50% of what they were telling him to do. And he was very specific about the things that he was applying. He was only doing the easiest part. For example, he would set up his profile on Instagram. It was quite good. He had a good profile picture and a good bio. And he would also post content every single day. But when we look deeper, he wasn't doing the hard part. For example, the type of content that he was posting wasn't actually studied for his niche. He was doing some generic content, labeling for the niche, posting every day and hoping that he would get clients for that. And the other thing, he wasn't doing the outreach the way that he was supposed to do. He was just copying and pasting AI bullshit. And probably the most important thing is that he avoided phone calls. He wanted to close every single client in the DMs. And so you can see right here where the problem was, but this wasn't the only thing that he did. He would try something for about a month, and if in that month it didn't work, he would quit and start something all over again. So he didn't even have the patience to do something for long enough until it started working, because he was half-assing things, yes, but if he stuck with it for long enough, maybe something would have worked, but he wasn't patient enough for that. And this same principle could apply to clients that we probably had. The ones that come to you and that after 2 weeks they say, oh, can you change the plan? This is not working for me. Or even worse, the ones that you give them the plan, you give them exercises, and then they secretly change something because it's too hard for them. This is the same principle, and a lot of you guys are like this. Because you think that taking the first step, it's enough for you to get results. But this is not how it works. You need to take the right direction, and sometimes the right direction is something that it's uncomfortable for you to do. Comfortability is never going to bring you results, even if you take the first step. And the funny part is that Rob was genuinely surprised when I called him out on this, because he thought that by simply doing the first part, that would have been enough to get him results. But that's not how it works. And there's so many coaches out there who think the same way. Now we get to the third layer. And this is what I call the victimism layer. Now, the third layer is a little bit tricky because it's very hard to spot a problem if you are in this area. And I want to talk about Rod. Unlike the previous guys that we talked about, he was actually doing the things that he was supposed to do, and yet he wasn't getting results. He bought a mentorship and he didn't get results from that. And so when he came to me, we both thought that his mentorship that he previously bought was basically bad. So he joined my program, and fast forward a few months, he got some results, but he wasn't near where he wanted to be. And so he started complaining that my program was bad. But I knew that there was something wrong, because other people that joined around the same time got better results than him. So you understand how the situation got tricky. And it's not like he wasn't doing the things that I was telling him to do. He was doing them. He was posting the content, he was doing the sales calls, like he was applying just about everything that I told him to do. And he still wasn't getting results. And so we hopped on a call, and instead of telling him what to do, we started analyzing everything. So he shared his screen, and we started seeing his DMs, how he posted the content, the recordings of his sales call, and now it was clear to why he wasn't getting the results that he wanted to get. Because he was putting very low effort in all the activities that he was doing. So when he filmed content, he actually talked about topics that his ideal client wanted to hear, but the way that he talked to the camera, it looked forced. There was no energy behind that. And that same energy is something that he applied in his DMs and even on sales calls. Even if his script was right, the energy behind the phone wasn't right. So he wasn't closing any deals. So he had no real conviction behind everything that he was doing. And he was behaving like this type of client that you might have had. The ones that you give them the program, they disappear for 1 or 2 months, they come back and they say, oh, I did everything that you told me to do and I still don't get results. And so it's weird for you until you start to understand everything that goes beneath the hood. They do the exercises, yes, but they don't push any set failure. They eat what they're supposed to eat, but they eyeball their macros. They go to sleep at 1 a.m. after doom scrolling. So you see how these little behaviors are going to affect the results that you get. Even if you do the right things, if you don't put all the effort that you can into these things, you're never going to get the result that you want. And so it's not like Rod was lying to me. He was lying to himself. He convinced himself that by doing the minimum, he would have gotten the most. And he'd been doing this for who knows how many months before joining my program. And this started to become a reality for him. He couldn't see what was going on. And you can see why it's so dangerous to have this kind of mindset. Because even if you try to look at everything from the outside, you are convinced that you're doing everything right. And this is why this is the most dangerous spot that you can be in. So just to do a quick recap, we had Bob, who was waiting for the best moment to act. We had Rob, who was doing everything, but in a way that was convenient for him. And then we had Rod, who was basically just doing the bare minimum and hoping to get the results, even if he was on the right direction. Now, these might look like different behaviors from the outside, but in reality, they all stand on the same core issue. And the reason to why they ended up in the same place, even though they all look like different scenarios, it's because they still behaved like the person they thought they were. Now let me give you an example that's going to be a little bit cliche. Let's say that you want to be a millionaire. You need to start asking yourself, how would the millionaire version of me behave to get to that result? So in this moment right now, if you want to become fit, what would the fit version of me do right now to get to that condition? Because every time you take action, you base all your actions on who you currently are right now. And just to give you a little bit of background, we as human beings, we don't want to be wrong about things. So if we believe something, we are going to do everything that we can to validate that conviction. So for example, Bob, he was a busy person, and so he saw himself as a busy person, and everything that he was doing was validating subconsciously that kind of behavior. So without even knowing, he was doing actions that made him busy. And the same thing even applied for Rod. And that was the most difficult situation, because he was convinced that he was right, that he was doing everything the right way. If you are on your own, it's very difficult to see that, because you lied to yourself so much to the point that you believe your own lies, even though they are harmful for you. This can go on for years and years and years, and the more time passes by, the more you convince yourself and validate these kind of thoughts, and the harder it is to get out of them. And this is why it's so important to take action right now, because chances are that if you are not in a situation where you want to be right now, and you are doing a lot of things and you never move, it's because you're probably lying to yourself. At some point, you need to have some humility and ask yourself, am I really who I want to be? Am I really behaving like the version of me that got to that goal? If you're not where you want to be, the answer is probably not. Your own ego is messing you up. The fucked up thing is that this is human nature. We want to suffer the least amount possible. So we cope in whatever way that we can. But this doesn't need to be an excuse for you to never take action. You need to be the first one to help yourself. In Italy, we have a saying, aiutati che Dio ti aiuta. It means help yourself and God will help you. You will be able to receive help only when you start helping yourself. But you need to put your pride aside, understand that what you did up until now was an error, and I know it's difficult to understand and to accept, because you probably would say, oh, I threw out away years of my life and I still got nothing. You are forcing 1 or 2, 3 steps forward because you are too scared to stay back. It's not efficient, and you can see how this is ruining your life. The most important thing about me, and that I'll take a lot of pride in my coaching, it's not really just about the systems that I give you and the strategy and the plans, but I want to challenge you and your beliefs right now as a person. Because chances are that the majority of the work needs to be done there. And this is why I got so mad about the fact that the industry was watering down so much the mindset part. Because you can see right here how much that's affecting you right now. At the end of the day, you just need to have the humility to self-deconstruct yourself, clarify where you want to go, and start behaving completely differently. Not just from a strategy standpoint, but who you are as a person. That's the best thing that you could ever do. And I'm not saying this because I think I know better, but I've helped a lot of coaches for these exact reasons. A lot of them already knew the strategy. They just had something inside of them that was blocking them. Now, if you like this video and you want to book a call with me to see if I can actually help you achieve your goals by destroying the person that you are right now and rebuilding a better version of yourself, there's a link down below where you can book a call with me. I'm going to look at you, your current situation, your business, and see if there's something that I can do to help you achieve your goals. If not, I'll be completely straightforward and honest about it. Again, there's not much for me to say. I hope you have a great night.